Hello and welcome back. My name is Dr. Christopher Gennari, and in this episode we do warfare and the Greek world. We're not going to do the particular wars, the Persian Wars, the Peloponnesian Wars. We're going to do the more general concept, the army of the Greek Poli, the development of citizen soldiers, and, well, how do Greeks fight, and how does the way they fight affect the rest of Western history, European history after it. So we start with geography, as we left off with. The Greeks are a poor people in a mountainous country. They are the poorest people we have yet talked about. Even the Hebrews, who are stay away from globalized trade for the most part, in the Bronze Age, post-Bronze Age collapse, anyway. That changes in the Greek and Roman eras. But even the Hebrews are richer. They're closer to Egypt. They have ties to Babylon. The Greeks, on the other hand, are a bunch of hillbillies living in the mountains. Nobody takes them seriously. Not the Persians, not the Egyptians. They're barbarian people living in the mountains. So can they have a chariot like all the other rich people? And the answer is no. They don't have the money for chariots to start with. 2, they live in mountains, so they don't have the flat land for chariots to work in. And 3, they don't have the flat land or the large farms to raise the horses. So no chariots. Well, what about mercenaries? Let's hire a bunch of professional, military, experienced men who know how to kill people. No. They're too expensive. Mercenaries have a skill, and that skill is fairly rare, especially in the ancient world. And so they can sell their skills off to a high bidder, and the high bidders are going to be the rich civilizations of the Middle East: Egypt, Babylon, Lydia, Persia. Why would I go work for the Greeks when I could go work for the king of Persia? I could go work for Cyrus. And so we can't hire mercenaries. We don't have any money. So what about a professional army? We'll take a bunch of our citizens, 10,000 or so, of our own citizens, and they'll do nothing but train all day. They won't work on their farms. They won't even own farms. We'll put them in barracks, and we'll just pay their living wages through taxation. Basically a modern military system. No, because that's even more expensive than mercenaries. The mercenaries you can get rid of. The mercenaries you could fire. The mercenaries, you have a war, you win, you go, okay, thank you, mercenaries. You can go home now. You can go somewhere else. The professional army, you constantly have to pay. We have a professional army. Our professional army costs us somewhere between $600 and $800 billion a year. And a lot of that is in simple pay and simple food. It's not in the technology. It's not in the buying of new weapons. It's pay, medical care, and food. It's a huge chunk. But you don't know when the army is going to be needed, so they need to train all the time. So a professional army is far too expensive. Now, there is one exception to this, and it is the exception to all things Greek. There's a giant asterisk. It will always be there. Whenever I say anything about this, whenever I talk about the Greeks, there's always the asterisk. Just understand, there's always a footnote that is, the Spartans are different. The Spartans are weird. The Spartans are different from everybody else. They will have a professional army, and we will talk about that. But it will significantly change the society. There'll be a slave-owning society. There'll be a militarized society. There'll be a gender-segregated society. Men and women do not associate with each other, hang out with each other. Everybody in the Greek world looks at the Spartans and admires them. They go, wow, those Spartans are tough. And I would never want to live that way. I would never want to do what they do. It's insane. These Spartans are crazy. Tough, but crazy. And so you have to understand, The Spartans are the exception to all rules. So when we talk about a test and you say, oh, the Greeks live like, and then describe the Spartans because you saw a movie, I have to mark you wrong because the Greeks did not live like that. Only the Spartans did. Now you say the Spartans lived like this and other Greeks thought it was crazy because they lived this other way. That's perfectly acceptable. But do not confuse the Spartans with all the other Greeks, even though the Spartans are Greek. It's like Mormons in America or Jehovah's Witnesses. You can't say all Christians believe in and then talk about what Jehovah's Witnesses believe in. They're not the same. Jehovah's Witnesses are Christian, yes. Mormons are Christian, yes. But Christians also have churches, whereas the Mormons have a temple. There's differences. I'm not judging it. I'm not saying one's better or not. I'm just saying they're different and they're an exception. Mormons are an exception to the American Christian orthodoxy. They just are. So to say Mormons live like, perfectly acceptable. To say Americans live like and then describe Mormons is different. And that's what we're saying. The Spartans are that, or the Mormon, the Jehovah's Witness exception. So what do they create? Well, they create the Phalanx. Why? Because the only people who are left to fight are the farmers. Now, I know what you're saying. I know what you're thinking. I hope I know what you're thinking. Professor, farmers farm. They don't fight. I got all the F's. Right there. Farmers farm. They don't fight. Got it. Fishes are friends, not food. I'm with you. And you said they don't fight. So now you're saying they fight. And I'm saying yes. The Greeks are going to take farmers and turn them into fighters. Not professional fighters. So what does that tell you about Greek warfare? The first thing is it's short. A Greek war is one day. It's a weekend. It's one big battle. It's a big battle. It has a lot of people fighting in it. A lot of people are going to be killed in it. But at the end of the battle, the war is essentially over. One side has won. One side has lost. They make a peace treaty and they go on with their lives. They go back to farming. There is a scene that I like in Deadwood, the HBO show Deadwood, which is 15 years old or 10 years old at this point. It's in the first episode of the second season when the two main characters, the good guy, the main good guy and the main bad guy, the antagonist and the protagonist, get into a fist fight. They have had enough of, they've been at each other's throats the entire first season. The second season has started and it's going to boil. Boom. And they're going to fight. And they fight. And it's this huge fight. Basically, it's a draw. Both sides are bloodied. They go back to their corners. And in comes a third character who is more or less aligned with the bad guy. And people come up to him and they go, what happened? What happened? And he goes, it was like some great Greek battle. And it was such a great reference because that is exactly how it's described. It's this pushing and shoving and stabbing and this collision. There's nothing elegant about it. But it was very violent and it was over quickly. A Greek war lasted for about a weekend. Now, when we get to the Peloponnesian War, we're going to see that that is different. So the farmers could take the time. Why? Because it's not that much time. They plant in the spring, then June, July happens, and they get their spear and they walk up into town and they go, okay, who are we fighting? Because we're going to fight somebody. Why? Because we're poor. And the people over the mountains are poor. And the people on the other side of the other mountains are poor. And we all want stuff. And oh, look, we discovered a gold mine in the mountains between our town and the next town over. Our town and Doug's town. Dougie Doug. And guess what Dougie Doug wants to do? Dougie Doug wants that gold mine too, because that much gold will change their lives. So I want the gold mine. Dougie wants the gold mine. So what are we going to do? We're going to throw down like Bobby Flay and we're going to fight over it. So we're going to get our guys together. We're going to get some sharp sticks. We're going to find a flat piece of earth because nobody wants to be fighting uphill or downhill. Right? The side that's uphill is always going to have the advantage. So we're going to find a flat place. And for a day, we're going to run into each other and whack each other and try to murder each other. And then one side is going to run away and the other side is going to stand there and laugh and cheer and erect a trophy, a symbol saying, we've won. And then we're going to wait. Now you may think that's weird, but remember, there's all these dead people. And the idea is the people who lost are going to want to bury their friends, their family, their husbands, their sons. And so representatives will come up and go, look, fine, you won. Can we have the bodies back? And what is my side going to say? My side's going to say, of course you can have your bodies back if you agree that we won and we get the gold mine. And their side will say, okay, we agree to that, but not forever, for 5 years. In 5 years, we reserve the right to fight you again. And we say, of course, of course, of course. You know, because the idea is you never sign a peace treaty forever. Of course you're going to fight. Sooner or later, you're going to want the gold, or there's going to be another gold mine or a silver mine, or there's going to be something, and you're going to fight. And so since these were also religious, like we were going to bring in the gods of war, we're going to bring in the gods of peace, we're going to have a whole religious ceremony to the gods saying, I promise to keep the peace. No one wants to break that to the gods because remember, we're poor and living in mountains. Nobody wants the gods mad at you. And so we make a deadline on it. We say 5 years because I can wait 5 years to fight you again. That's not a problem. And so Greek warfare is quick. And then we won. We get what we wanted. We signed the peace treaty. We write it down. Both sides get it. We erect it in stone in the middle of town so that everybody knows. And then my farmers go back to farming. It took them a weekend. You know, we camped most of it. It was kind of cool. It was a fun time out. Now, what happens over time is people realize, well, just slamming away at each other isn't going to work because what do farmers do? Farmers run away. Why would farmers run away? Well, farmers run away because they're facing 10,000 people who want to kill them. And it's the right thing to do to run away. Like, we have this idea of like cowards and whatnot. Your body says, am I likely to die? Yes, I'm out of here. I don't want to be here. I'm out. It's fight or flight. And if you don't have to fight, you flee. And 10,000 pointy sticks wanting to stab you in the face is a reason to flee. You are right to run away. You are not a professional soldier. These are farmers. So, what happens is that we go from a big mass where everyone just slams away at each other into boxes. The phalanx. We invent the phalanx. Because we don't want people to run away. If they run away, we lose. And so we invent the phalanx. Phalanx. The phalanx. Phalanx. Men standing shoulder to shoulder, forming a box. Why? Well, if you're looking at the video, if you're in a box, if you're in the middle of the box, you can't run away. The only people who can run away are in the front or in the back. And we'll talk about that in a second. Why these guys won't run away. So where do we put our newest people? We put them in the middle. Where you can't turn. You got a person to your left. You got a person to your right. You got a person in front of you. You're practically breathing on their neck. You got a person behind you breathing on your neck. So you can't turn. You can only move forward. And only when the rest of the group moves forward. Kind of like an elementary school class on their way to art class. You know, and they're walking the hallway, and they're on the edge of the wall, and it's this big long line of like 30 kids. And what happens? When the first kid stops, by the end, they're all bumping into each other. Ah, he's bumping into me, he's touching me. And this is kind of how Greek warfare works. So you put the youngest guys, your 16, 17, 18-year-olds, 22-year-olds, in the middle. Why? Because they're the most likely to run away. They've never been in a battle before. They don't know what it's like. So we put them in the middle. They can't even see. You got a guy in front of you. You can't even see the guy's trying to kill you. So you're not afraid. So where do we put our most experienced troops? The guys who have done the most fighting? Obviously, we put them in the back. Wait, what? Wouldn't you put your most experienced fighters in the front? No, because the goal, there's not a lot of individual fighting. You're in a box. You can't swing your arms. The goal of the phalanx is to keep people from running away. And so you take your most experienced guys and put them in the back because they're the people who can run away. And so you put your most experienced guys in the back because they're the least likely to run away. Also, when the collision happens between phalanxes, they're going to put their shields in the back of the guy in front of them and push the entire phalanx forward. So they're the engine. They're the momentum of the phalanx. So they have to have the most moral resolve. They can't waver. If they run away, everybody runs away. The second reason you put your guys in the back is they are your institutional knowledge. They've fought before. There's a famous scene in the Peloponnesian War where the Athenians are going to fight the Thebans. And the young men, Thucydides tells us the Athenian young men are nervous because the Thebans have a reputation as good soldiers next to the Spartans. Like the Spartans are clearly the best. And then there's the Athenians and the Thebans. And so the Thebans are good. The Thebans can fight. Thebans don't run away. The Spartans never run away. But the Thebans usually don't run away. And we'll see this with the sacred band against Alexander. Alexander will obliterate Thebes, and he'll have to murder their entire army to do so. So, because they didn't run away. So he just butchers them all. So the young men of Athens are worried. And they're like, oh my God, we're fighting the Thebans? I didn't know we were going to fight the Thebans. And the guys in the back are like, don't worry about it. They're shouting to the guys in the front and in the middle. Don't worry about it. We fought them 20 years ago and we kicked their butts. They're a bunch of wimps. They run away. I know they have a reputation. Oh, please. I've seen Thebans. They're easy to beat. It'll be easy. And so you got this shouting from the back of confidence, of knowledge. Don't fight. Keep together. Don't worry. Don't run away. We're in this. We've beaten these guys 5 times before. So then who's in the front? Well, the guys who are in the front are the guys who want to be in the front. They volunteer to be in the front. Why? Because the guys in the middle get no glory for being in the middle. Because what happens after a battle? So after a battle, I've described it. You win. You put up the trophy. The smart dudes negotiate. They write it all out. And they tell you, okay, let's go back to town. Am I going to go back to work? I'm not going to go back to work. I just won a battle. And so what are we going to do? We're going to go drink. We're going to get drunk. We're going to have a good time. We're going to tell stories. But here's the problem. What stories do I have? I was in the middle. I didn't fight anybody. I didn't stab anybody. I didn't even see anybody. I got pushed from the guy behind me, and I pushed the guy in front of me. So I have no stories to impress either other guys or, more importantly, women. And if you don't think men fight to impress women, well, then I don't know what to tell you, because men fight to impress women. It's how sports works. Yes, it just is. Men use war as a symbol of virility. Look at how good I am on the battlefield. I'm awesome. And so, if I'm awesome at war, I'm awesome at other things. And the guys in the middle have nothing to brag about. Meanwhile, the guys in the front are sitting there and they're drinking and they're carousing and they got 3, 4 women each and they're hanging on every word and like, oh, and then I stabbed this guy right in the face and he was about to stab you, right? And I cut off his arm. He's like, oh, yeah, you did that and that was awesome. But remember when you were turned around and you were about to get stabbed in the back and I killed the guy who was about to kill you? He's like, oh, you were awesome, man. And we drink up. And the ladies are like, wow, you're so amazing. We're like, yes, we are amazing, aren't we? Well, the young guys in the middle are looking at that with their little root beers going, I want to be that. Can I be that? Can I get a whiskey? No, you will have your root beer and like it. Okay. I want. And then someone will come up and what did you do? I got pushed. Well, that's not impressive. No, I guess not. I was there. Well, that's good. I'm going to go over there and hang out with the people who did stuff. Okay, thanks. So what about the guys with the most experience? What are they doing in the bar? What are they doing in the pub? Why aren't they in the front? Why are they still in the front? They get to brag. No. Why? Because they're married. Because the guys who are the most experienced are the older guys. The guys 25 to 35 years of age. Maybe up to 45 years of age. Right? So they've done it. They've been there. They've done that. So they're sitting at their own table. So while the young dudes with the root beers are like, oh, I wish someone would ask me what I did in the battle. And the guys in the front are like, oh, we did so much. We are awesome. The old dudes, who are, by old, I mean like 32, are sitting in the corner by themselves being like, look at these kids. They think that was a battle. Huh, those guys practically wet themselves and ran away. Do you remember the time? Do you remember the time we fought the Artemisians? Now that was a battle. Oh my God, that was a battle. And you were awesome. I was awesome. But you, my friend, were even more awesome. Oh, we must have killed. How many did you kill? Oh, at least 45. And what about you? Oh, well, 46. Oh, of course. Oh, these kids think this is a battle. If they were in a real battle, they were in a real battle. And so the old guys are there. Why? Well, they're married. They don't need to brag. They have done it. They've been there. In the Peloponnesian War, you survive. You survive Delium. If you're an Athenian and you survive Delium, where the Thebans ran through the Athenian army and butchered most of the men, and including almost Socrates. Socrates was in the battle. He was a soldier in the battle. He almost died, which means philosophy would have been radically different if he had. But if you survive Delium and you're standing there, you don't need to brag. You survived the equivalent of like Shiloh or the equivalent of like Guadalcanal. Like, you don't need to brag. You're like, okay, kids, that's nice. I was at Delium. You were at Delium? Yeah. I was in the 3rd row at Delium. Holy Jesus, man. Did you know he was at Delium? He was at Delium. It's amazing. Holy crap. Cheers. Cheers. Wow. That's the attitude. So, now what happens to the old guys? Well, they retire. They die or they retire, which means there's now space in the back. So what happens is the young men who want to be at the front because they want the glory get married, settle down, and they move to the back because now we need men in the back and we need experienced men in the back. So the guys in the front move to the back. The guys in the middle want the glory, so they move to the front. And new men who are becoming 16, 17, 18 years of age enter into the middle. And you have this the Phalanx has this natural incorporation of male society running through it, from the youngest men to the eldest men. All men are important. One group does not insult the other group. Oh, well, there's the bragging rights part, but that's just men being men. That's old men being like, yeah, whatever, kids. And that's just the way it is. But that's experience versus youth, right? The enthusiasm of youth versus the wisdom of experience. And the enthusiasm of youth will always, be like, "Ugh, whatever, old man." Well, the old man will always be like, "Ugh, you kids don't know what it was really like back in the day." And so, but there's this natural progression. You go into the middle, you're there a couple years, you volunteer for a space in the front, you move up to the front, you get your glory, you get married, you move to the back. And then if you live long enough, you retire. And so it's a way from male society, from the youth all the way to old age, to be incorporated into the military unit. Now, so we got how it works. What do they wear? Well, they all wear armor. Now, why would they wear armor? Because I don't want to be hit with a spear. That's scary, man. I'm facing 10,000 people who want to stab me in the face. Actually, a phalanx is 300 people. That's why the movie The 300, it's one phalanx of Spartans was there. So 300 men is about one good-sized phalanx, which is the military unit. Now, that's not the entire army. You'll have multiple phalanxes. But the idea is they're in this close-knit group of 300 or so men. And if I'm going to charge into a phalanx, so what happens is I'm in a box that can only move forward. Well, I'm going to fight a phalanx, which is a box that can only move forward, which means what's going to happen? We're going to run at each other and have a car crash. We're going to have a front collision as our two phalanxes run into each other. And then we're going to push. The guys in the back are going to push the guys in front of them into that phalanx so that they become intermeshed. And what happens is all this fighting is happening, and then people see that they're not protected, and they don't see their friends anymore, their family, and they get scared. And what they do is one side eventually runs away. You don't murder everybody in the phalanx. You don't kill everybody in the phalanx. One side will break and run away because they're farmers. They're not soldiers. But to make them want to stand and fight more, you put them in armor. And so you cover yourself in bronze armor from the top to the bottom. Heavy bronze armor. It's about 50, 60 pounds. Now, this is the one problem I have with the 300. Now, there are several problems with the 300 from a historical standpoint. But the one problem that's the unforgivable problem as a teacher is the fact that the Spartans fight in their underwear. Why? I know the movie wants to show off how tough these guys are, and the Spartans were tough, and I understand that. There is no doubt the Spartans are tough like in the movie. But what made the Greeks dangerous? What made the Greeks scary to other peoples was the fact that they were like the Terminator. They were covered. They were like a machine. The only thing that was exposed was their eyes. The slit for the eyes. Everything else, from the top of the head to the bottom of the feet, was covered in armor. Well, how do you break that? How do you get into that? How do you kill that man? And so that's what made them scary to other peoples. That's what made them tough. Like a man who's not wearing armor, who's just got his chest out there, like I can kill that guy. Me and a couple guys, we can kill him. One guy is going to hit him. He's going to have to defend himself with a shield. When he defends himself with a shield, he's exposed. Boom. Two other guys stab him. He's dead. This is not hard. But in a phalanx, where every man is covered in armor, standing shoulder to shoulder, like, where are you going to stab them? And so what happens is, when that collision happens, the spears that people use, in many cases, just bend and break. They hit shields, they hit the armor, and the wood bends with all of the weight being pushed. And it snaps, and it breaks. So you wore armor to protect yourself because you didn't want to be hit with a spear. That would be bad. Now, does that create some men able to join the army and some not? Yes. Yes, it does. Income inequality exists in the Greek world, and rich men can afford the armor easier than poor men. But notice, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit about effects, in our next lecture when we talk about the effects of of the phalanx. It's like a car in the suburbs. It's what you'll save up for as a young man when you're working. It's what your parents will be like, son, here you go, here's your present. You're 21 now. And you open it up and be like, oh, it's my bronze armor. It'll be like, yep, don't get killed all in the same place. That's got to last you. Got to last a couple battles. Like, uncles and aunties and parents, like, it will be a major deal to get you that armor, because with that armor, you can be in the army. And if you're in the army, you're a man. Now, poor men who can't afford the armor will serve as well in the military forces. And the Romans will call them auxiliaries. And they'll throw their spears, and they'll shoot their arrows, and they'll annoy the men in armor. But the real Greek war is phalanx. The society gears itself up to a phalanx battle. It is all about the men in the armor. And those are going to be middle-class men. Middle-class and upper-class men. And so, now, in this case, Athens will be the exception, and we'll talk about that, because Athens will build a navy. And the navy, like any dude can row. And so poor men will join the navy. But the Athenian army was you still had to have armor. You had to provide your own armor. And that showed you were an adult. You were a man of the city. You were to be taken seriously. Now, that's nice, but I don't want my chest to be hit with a spear and then hope it doesn't punch through the armor and doesn't kill me. And so what we're going to use is a shield. We're going to have a nice big inch-thick piece of oak that we're going to cover in bronze, give a little shielding to, that I'm going to carry. It's going to weigh 15 to 20 pounds. And so that's a problem, because a Greek battle is about half an hour to an hour long. If you're carrying a 20-pound object, go to the gym, pick up a 18.5-pound dumbbell, and then hold it out. And I'll give you about 30 seconds before your arm starts to go down. Why? Because your arm, your bicep, your tricep, your shoulder is not carrying that weight. Your wrist is. And your wrist is a weak muscle. And so what the Greeks realized, that if they just held their shield and protected themselves with it, from their eyes to their groin or their knees, very quickly, within a minute or two, suddenly their chin is exposed, then their neck is exposed, and they have to keep upping their shield, but it's heavy and getting heavier because it's gravity. So what the Greeks do is move the straps so that you put your arm through it. So instead of carrying it in your wrist like a kite shield in the Middle Ages, that tells you how long knights fought. In a battle with knights, it was about 30 seconds, if that. A couple of hits with the sword, and then one side or the other killed each other, and then you could put your arm down, and whew, and you go off and you trug off, and then another guy runs at you, and you put up your shield, and you fight again. And so you're doing 30 seconds and then a rest, 30 seconds and then a rest, 30 seconds and then a rest. Whereas in the phalanx, you don't get that rest. It's half an hour of pushing and shoving and being stabbed and stabbing. And so what they did was move the straps to the left, put your arm through it so that the shield rested on your shoulder. Now, so it's over your bicep, it's over your tricep, it's over your shoulder. So now, that 20 pounds, you could shoulder press that all day. Suddenly your back can carry that. That's easy enough. Your shoulders can carry that. You might be a little sore at the end of the day, but for half an hour, you could put, look at your backpacks and your shoulder bags and your messenger bags, and look at how much crap you put in those and how heavy those can get. That's what we're talking about. And you do that all day. Male deliverers have a 20, 30, 40 pound pack, and they're all shoulder bags. So they can do that. You can do it for half an hour. Now, but what that does is mean the shield no longer protects you, but protects half of you the left half of you, but it also protects the right half of the person next to you. And that's important. You are literally, like we talked today about the modern army, and as you fight for the man next to you, you fight for the person next to you, and that's metaphorical. In the Greek world, you literally fought to defend the person next to you. If you ran away, the person next to you was exposed. And that's why the general was in the front row on the right side, in the right corner. Why? Because he was the most exposed person on the battlefield. And he led by example. There's no, the only command you can give is forward. That's it. So you lead by example. So no Spartan general survived a defeat for 700 years. Like, if the Spartans lost a battle, and that was fairly rare, but they do, when they do, Spartan generals die fighting. Like Leonidas at Thermopylae. You don't survive that battle because you lead from the front. You're exposed. So, your shield literally covers the man next to you. So what do the Greeks do? The Greeks aren't stupid. So what do? They put people next to each other that care about each other. They put fathers next to sons, brothers next to brothers, because I know if I come home from a battle and I'm like, hey, Mom, how are you? She's going to turn to me and goes, where's your brother? Oh, he's back at the battle. You go back there and get him. Leave him. And the Spartans and the Thebans go even further. And they were willing to put male homosexual lovers next to each other. In fact, in Sparta, homosexual relations were encouraged for young men in order to make it so that that unit doesn't run. Because let's face it, if you love the person you're standing next to, you are not going to run. You are going to fight to the end. And Spartan armies don't run. You might have to kill, if you're going to defeat a Spartan army, you have to kill every last one of them, like the Spartans at Thermopylae. You're going to have to kill every last one of them. They are not going to run away. Why? Because they have been inculcated with brotherhood, with citizenship, and for many of them, they're standing next to the man that they love. The Thebans, I talked about that Alexander had to destroy, the sacred band, was an entire phalanx of male homosexual lovers. And they were the best part of the army. So when we talk today about how gay men can't be in the army because they would make the army worse, you kind of have to laugh, because in the Greek world, they were the best soldiers because they never ran, because they protected the person next to them. So, we're in this box. We're in this 50 pounds of armor. We're carrying a 20-pound shield. We're shoulder to shoulder. What weapon do we use? We can only use a spear, a 10-foot-long spear. Now, the Macedonians, Alexander will extend that to, actually, it'll be Philip II who will do it, to about 22 feet. But for most Greeks, it's 10 feet, 8 to 10 feet. And it's the only thing you could use. You could do a little stab as you push out your arm, and if you hold your arm, your elbow at a 90-degree angle to your shoulder, and you hold your fake spear up, straight up, well, when you want to stab somebody, you push out your arm, and then you have to turn your wrist, and so you get this corkscrew motion. You turn it counterclockwise, and boom! It's right-handed, so your wrist will turn counterclockwise, and you stab someone in the face. Stab someone in the face. Stab someone in the face. The only weapon you can use is a spear. Now, the spear will have a little point, a weighted point at the end, because what will happen is your spear will break, and then you'll be in the mosh pit that is the Greek Phalanx battle, and you'll try to stab somebody in the eye or maybe in the neck. You'll turn your spear around and try to stab them. Maybe you carry a little dagger. The 300, they whip out these giant two-handed swords. Nobody had that, because there's no way to fight that way. If you watch the 300, you don't watch a Greek battle. They are in a phalanx for 10 seconds. There is one shot of a phalanx. It is the hardest thing for me as a professor to try to get. It is one scene of one shot. It might be 10 frames. It's 24 frames, because it might be a second. of them actually in a phalanx. Otherwise, they're fighting like regular old barbarians, just like running out and charging. The Greeks don't fight that way. They fight in a box. And the only weapon they can use is the spear, which makes sense. There's no room, and it gives you 10 feet of room. You keep your enemy away from you. You want your enemy to be as far away from you as possible. And so what's the effect of this? The effect is it allows untrained footmen to stand, fight, and survive. That's very different from Middle Eastern armies. That's the big thing. In our next episode, we're going to talk about that, why it matters, and what effect that has on politics and on the society. So take care, and we'll talk about the results in our next lecture. Thank you.